Hello and welcome to Denver Wellness Digest. My name is Chris Perez and today we're interviewing Sarah Mobley. She is a psychiatric nurse practitioner and is here to share some excellent information on child and teen mental illness. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. So, a lot of times, child and adolescent mental wellness is swept under the rug. We think of kids as being resilient, they'll get over it, oh, this is normal for their age. And sometimes it's really not, because 50% of mental illness actually begins by age 14.
Really? Like what types of mental illness do you see in kids?
So a lot of times we see depression, anxiety, ADHD, eating disorders are some of the more common ones, but it's very different from how adults present. So a child with depression may present as more reactive, acting out, having behavioral problems, being very, very irritable, where the adult may come across as just being, melancholy and sad. And that can still happen to teens, but the presentation may not be as you would expect in adults.
As a parent with teens, how do I tell the difference between my normal teen and what you just described?
It's kid specific. So
Gotcha.
no one knows your kid like you do. So if you feel something is off, they're being more withdrawn, having issues in school where they didn't have issues before, maybe getting really, really upset over little things. Those are all signs that potentially something may be off.
So Sarah, what are some things that might actually trigger depression or anxiety in my kids?
So there are several things, perhaps, with the caveat of it may be nothing.
Right.
There may be absolutely no reason, but some common reasons are hormones, puberty. That can certainly cause a very tumultuous time.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's a big disparity that's kind of provoked by social media of how kids see what reality should be versus what reality is.
Right.
So that can cause a lot of comparison and poor self-worth and trying to obtain the proverbial carrot that is not obtainable.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with it.
I mean, you're talking about the kids taking cues from YouTube influencers and, unless this show goes through the roof as a YouTube channel, I don't,
Right.
This will hopefully be a good experience for my kids to see that just because you have a YouTube channel doesn't mean that you're
Yes.
retiring.
Okay.
So Sarah, one of my big questions is how can I approach my kids or my teen with these questions about their well-being without irritating them more?
Well, irritation is always a risk. So approaching them with that expectation may not be realistic. But definitely kids are going to respond to different approaches. So you try X response saying, hey, talk to me. You may have kids that are like, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So then there are other ways. Writing them letters, showing them support, noticing when things are off and asking what they need. You may want to try saying, hey, I notice you've been sleeping a lot more. Is there something you want to talk about? And that kind of leaves the door open. And open-ended questions are always going to be preferred over closed-ended. Coming to them at a time when they're not very emotional may be appropriate, so they're more receptive to engage. So that would be one idea.
I know my wife has had great success talking to the kids on drives, and that's one of her favorite times to talk to the kids is their guards come down a little bit, I think, as they're distracted by whatever drive we're on.
Yeah, and they don't have the external distraction.
They don't, yeah.
Like, hey, I'm in a setting that I'm familiar with, let me do this thing, let me look at this screen. And so drives or having them one-on-one or even taking them out for special trips, special visits, one-on-one may be helpful because also, it takes a village. So you could also mention this to someone that perhaps they are more open to talking to, a teacher, a counselor, a parent. I would just avoid including peers of the child because peers are great,
Right.
but if the child is seeking support from the peers alone, it's probably not the best thing.
Yeah, that's an important one to remember. What might anxiety look like in an adolescent or a child?
So anxiety and depression often go hand in hand. So 3/4 of kids that have depression also have anxiety. So there may be a lot of overlap there, but some things that are specific to anxiety may be avoiding certain events, really voicing a lot of dread, not wanting to do certain activities because they make them feel uneasy. So it's, like I said, there's a lot of overlap, but they can be two separate entities. But you can definitely tell if a child is normally extroverted, easygoing, and then they start to voice, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And anxiety could be a possible reason. But at the end of the day, it becomes a concern if it's really inhibiting the child's ability to function. And so that would be drawing the line as like, okay, what's normal and what's not. And of course, if the child voices distress to you, then that's another indicator.
So Sarah, let me ask you this. What could happen if I don't pick up on the cues and I don't get help for my child?
First off, don't blame yourself, because a lot of things go unnoticed with kids. They purposely don't want you to know certain things.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really crucial to have an open environment when possible, but absolutely boundaries are necessary. Parenting is necessary. So some things that could potentially happen if the child needs help and doesn't receive it is it's going to come out in ways that aren't the best. So some of these ways may be that they're becoming very reactive. They become angry, hostile. They may even start bullying others.
Really?
Yeah, not the best. Their grades may slip. Actually, there is a sizable dropout rate from high school as well.
You're kidding.
Yes, if they don't seek help. Not to mention that help is often delayed by 11 years after symptoms present.
11 years. Why is that?
Well, there's tons of barriers, or barriers that people perceive them. So some big ones are stigma. That's huge. I'm not crazy. I don't need help. What are you talking about? My aunt so-and-so is crazy. That's not me.
Yeah.
A lot of kids or parents don't want their child to be on medication. That's another barrier. Transportation, cost. I mean, the list goes on and on. So there's definitely several reasons. But at the end of the day, if the child needs help, if they start having any sort of functional impairment, if they express distress to you, or if you notice distress in them, or hopefully that it doesn't get to this point, but if the child starts hurting themselves.
Maybe I'm not ready to put my child on medication. What else can I do?
There are so many other things that you can do besides medication. And just because a kid has anxiety or depression or even ADHD does not mean you need to throw a pill at it. There's things such as sleep, routine, nutrition, also addressing the child's environment. Maybe there's something specifically, whether peer-related, socially, or some sort of interpersonal issue. So there are things that you can do without medication. Some things include sleep, making sure that they're getting enough sleep, and it's a regular sleep schedule. Which brings me to my next point, routine. Is also very critical. Some children that are very anxious don't do well with routine changes, and it causes a lot of rigidity, which can amplify anxiety. So it's very important that if you do start changing things for a very rigid or anxious child, that you do so in a very supportive therapeutic environment.
Gotcha.
Therapy can also be very, very helpful. Therapy can help with the child's coping mechanism, and some of the coping mechanisms could be things such as deep breathing, taking time to actually process what's going on, or reframing the situation so that anxiety isn't the primary response. Nutrition, appropriate social support. I mean, it goes on, and you don't need to throw a pill at it necessarily. So anxiety essentially is an inappropriate fight or flight response. Your heart starts pounding, you get overwhelmed, thoughts start racing. And exercise is a great way to get that energy out and also regulate it. Not to mention it can be very helpful for children with ADHD as well, with regulating that hyperactivity.
Wow, great. Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So really to summarize, we should be watching for changes in behavior in our kids.
Yes.
We should be trying to keep an open dialogue with them and address these things. And I know that's a really hard one for us parents, especially in our busy lives. So what I heard you say was that we can do some easy things at home. Routine, sleep hygiene, good nutrition, and exercise. Do you hear that, kids? Sleep, nutrition, exercise.
And in addition to that, I would say, just really reinforce. No one knows your kids like you do. Keep loving them. Keep being aware. You're doing a fabulous job. Just sometimes kids need some help, and we're not attuned to it, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say the parents are doing a fabulous job, right? Or did you mean the kids?
Okay,
Everybody's doing a fabulous job.
I can take that back, right?
Yeah, well, I think let's go with we're all doing a fabulous job.
Yes. Yes.
So if you do need additional resources, all fun aside, we do have some links below to professional providers that can help you with adolescents and teens, such as Sarah. Some links to some great websites for more information on adolescent, teen, anxiety, and depression. And as always, if you do like what you saw, click like and subscribe. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.